Hello, Jen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm not sure who that is. Just give me a minute. I'm trying to.
It's okay. It's Jay Torgerson. I was just wondering if I'm logged into the right. Hello, Jen.
Okay, Jay. Hi. Sorry about that. Sorry, I was just
Okay. I don't know how to log in.
juggling too many things. I'm
Is this
going
the
to.
right place to be?
Yeah.
Okay.
You are in the right place. I'm going to push you over, and then I'll bring you back later.
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem. Thank you. We'll see you.
Okay. Sounds good.
Do we have a different agenda document for this work session?
We do. Do you want me to email it to you?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm finding that.
Okay, I have us broadcasting, but we're not recording yet, just so everybody on the call knows.
Okay.
I'll send that to you right now.
Hi, Piper, Harris, Jen.
Hi, Cliff.
How you doing?
I am hanging in there. How are you?
Yeah. Unfortunate situation today.
Oh, you're talking about the latest case count?
3919.
Yeah.
Yeah.
gnarly. Hi, Sheridan. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Cliff. Hi, Margaret. Hi, Harris.
Hey,
Hey, Chris, are you in the office? Are you at home?
No one's in the office.
Excuse me.
No one's minding the store.
Well, John was in earlier, but he went home for the meeting.
Chris, I found a destroyed Dynafit heel piece on the trail, and I put that on the windowsill outside the lower entry. I think you can get that thing going again. It looks like it's got some life still in it.
Thank you. Yes, it's probably mine. I probably bought that at some point.
we're going to start with me reading the determination, right?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Just give me a minute though before you.
Yeah, no, we're still a little early. Is Polly coming to this?
I would assume so.
Yeah, I would think so too.
When I talked to her a bit earlier, she indicated she was.
Okay, Thursday, November 12th, Town Council work session.
Let me know when you're ready to go, Piper.
I'm recording,
Okay.
but
All
Jen,
right.
I'm not sure Jen is yet. Okay, Jen is.
Okay. All right. So to start off, I need to read a determination regarding conducting Town of Alta public meetings without an anchor location. This is the work session that's preceding the Town Council meeting on November 12th, 2020. The mayor of the town of Alta, that's me, Harris Sondak, hereby determines that conducting a meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location pursuant to Utah Code 54-4-2074 and Resolution 2020 R12. The facts upon which this determination is based include the percentage number of positive COVID-19 cases in Utah has been significantly higher since May 27th, 2020. We got to 3,900, more than 3,900 today, as a matter of fact, over the last 14-day average. The 7-day average for cases on November 2nd, that was last week, was 1,726, with about half the state's cases in Salt Lake County. As of November 2nd, 2020, there have been 620 deaths reported in Utah due to COVID-19. This meeting will not have a physical anchor location. All attendees will connect remotely. Attendees may join the webinar by registering for the meeting through the town website, www.townofalta.com, or the meeting can be watched on YouTube, which we are broadcasting now. Additionally, comments may be emailed to the town clerk, plever@townofalta.com. This determination will expire in 30 days on December 3rd, 2020, by me, Harris Sondak, and attested by Piper Lever, town clerk. Okay, is that what we needed to do? I think that's it. So we ended up getting some requests to postpone an item that is on the agenda of the town council meeting and was going to be the main topic of this work session, which is our zoning. And it is our understanding that the town council members have largely been consulted, I think, and that we have agreed to postpone that. That is on the agenda, and the agenda gets set and can't really be changed in substance once we're within the window of, what is it, 24 hours, I think, Paula?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it is still on the agenda, but the work session, we decided we could move topics on, switch topics. And so when we get to the regular meeting, when we get to that item on the agenda, I'm going to propose that we postpone it for a month so we can work out what we want to do. I'll have a little bit more of an explanation at that time. So what we decided to do was to invite the team of people from MIT who I've been working extensively with on reopening during COVID-19 into the work session so that we'd have half an hour rather than just 15 minutes to give a little bit more time for some interaction. And in the meanwhile, the team has created, I think, a little bit more of an engaging storyline for what they're going to tell us. So let me introduce them to the people who are on the camera here and any of the participants. So we have a number of participants who aren't shown. Amar Singh Desi, who you can see them all, Sarah Timmons, Guang Chi Tui, and Emma Kelly. They are business students, engineering students, and computer science students at MIT. They're supervised by some of the leading people at their university on these issues. They're going to want to be able to share their screen, Jen. So if you can grant permission, is it to all four of you? Or Sarah, I believe you're going to start off, right?
Yeah, that works.
You should all be able to do that.
Okay, so let me just say one more thing about how we got connected. I have some colleagues at MIT who have been involved with this issue extensively and who invited me to be part of a MIT Harvard Public Health Task Force on reopening safely in our resort communities. And because I'm both at the University of Utah's Business School and the mayor of a resort community, it seemed like a good opportunity for me to contribute. And then through that connection, we were lucky in the town to be have the opportunity to work with this group, this team. Okay, Sarah.
So Sarah, you're still muted. And do you see the share screen in the bottom middle of your?
Yes, I'm just going to pull up the share screen now.
Okay, perfect. Just making sure you knew where to go.
Thank you. Let me know if you can see that.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so as Harris mentioned, we're happy to be here, and we're all avid skiers, and we've been fortunate enough to work with Alta as a town and Mayor Harris and many other stakeholders the past 2 months, trying to research and figure out some recommendations for opening the town of Alta and the greater community within the season of the upcoming ski season and COVID-19. And as Mayor Harris just mentioned, this is our team, and you'll hear from us more in this presentation.
Thank you, Sarah. So to start with, we're going to begin with the extreme story of Kevin. So meet Kevin. He can't wait for ski season to start and take his annual trip to his favorite place, the town of Alta. Kevin is relaxed about COVID and does not see it as a risk to him and thinks wearing a mask won't make a difference so much. So he doesn't even pack a mask to wear. However, what Kevin doesn't know is that he already has COVID-19 and is asymptomatic. So Kevin is staying in the valley and it's the morning. His belly is rumbling and he hasn't had breakfast today. So he decides that he'll go grab some food at the local cafe breakfast spot. Carefree Kevin enters to the restaurant, again with no mask, and meets up with his buddies. He goes over and gives them all a big hug and they start talking loudly as they're all so happy to have met after a few years. Kevin sits down, gets his food and talks about the wonderful time that they will all have in the upcoming weekend. They've been in the restaurant for about 60 minutes and as Kevin exits the restaurant, he has infected 30 people. So Kevin and his buddies take the UTA bus up to Alta Ski Resort. And when Kevin arrives at Alta Ski Resort, he trenches through the snow to get into the chairlift line. At Alta Ski Resort, and is so excited about his first run in the ski season at Alta Ski Resort, he can't help but talk to everyone around him and express his excitement. His ski buff, which serves as a poor protection anyway, may as well not even be on him. After about 20 minutes, he gets onto the chairlift, which seats about 4 people, but he has now come into contact and infected 2 people. He sits on the ski lift with 3 others, and it remains stationary for a few minutes and gets to the mountaintop for about 12 minutes. Now, at this point, Kevin is having a great time with several runs down the slope. The snow is falling heavily, which makes for some great powder. After one exhilarating run, when he gets to the bottom, he's breathing heavily, and unfortunately, he's run into some bad luck. There's an interlodge event warning, so an evacuation for all the customers is being called. Kevin has got his head down begrudgingly and makes his way over to the UTA bus. And he's got his ski buff around his neck and nothing covering his face. He gets on board, and because this is an emergency, there is now 60 people on the bus, all tightly next to each other like a can of sardines. Now Kevin can't help but expressing his frustration to anyone who wants to hear it, and is talking loudly about how his half a day of skiing has been cut short, and this is not the way he wanted his holiday to start. After 60 minutes of Kevin's complaints, everyone is relieved that they don't have to listen to him anymore and they can get off the bus. But what they didn't know, that not only did Kevin make that journey unpleasant with his complaining, but in fact, he had actually infected a further 37 people along the way. Now you can see in a few hours or half a day of Kevin's journey, he has gone on to infect 69 people. Although this is an extreme story, we just want you to know that just one person that doesn't follow policy and is asymptomatic has created a critical level of outbreak. I will now give it over to Emma just to go through that it's not all bad news and the different types of protocol that can be put in place to mitigate this risk. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, like Amar said, it's not all bad news. There are a lot of protocols that can be put in place that mitigate risk. And I'm going to go into a lot of analysis that we've done to see what those trade-offs are. So our analysis is based off of MIT research that has been and continues to be used to make decisions on MIT campus surrounding dorm capacities, dining hall capacities. The whole analysis platform is based off of equations of airflow and particle travel, a lot of mechanical engineering and fluid stuff that has been in the works for a long time. And a decent amount of this analysis is being rolled out to the NIH as we speak.
Emma, I just want to point out to everybody that MIT has been implementing this kind of knowledge on their own campus successfully. They have 1/3 the number of students as the U, and they have something like 1/25 of the cases. So there is some evidence that they know what they're talking about.
Yes. So this process of analysis has been a huge focus of ours for the past 6 weeks, 2 months. So it started with gathering information from various stakeholders in Alta, as Sarah said earlier. We assumed all analyzed areas would have no symptomatic people, which is people who are coughing and sneezing. And this is because if anyone is spreading COVID through coughing and sneezing, it is very difficult to contain. And I'll show that in a second in a slide. Additionally, we assumed that masks being used were 50% efficient, as well as the population prevalence of COVID was 1%. And those are just some assumptions that are worth stating, but we can get into them later if there are questions on those. Okay, next slide, we'll go to how COVID is spread. Just a very quick overview. So whether or not you're symptomatic, when you breathe, droplets come out of your mouth that carry the virus. So once someone catches COVID-19, once they have a sufficient number of virus particles in their lungs. So as you can imagine, when you're not talking, you're just being quiet, you only emit a certain number of particles. Research has shown that that's around 20 particles. When you are talking, next slide, you emit around 200 particles. When you're talking loudly, you could tell Amar kept bringing up Kevin talking loudly. This makes a big difference in the amount of particles that are coming out of your mouth. That goes to 2,000. And finally, if you're sneezing or coughing, the amount of particles goes up to 200,000. So all of this analysis is generally probability analysis. So if you are talking or you're being quiet or there's X airflow, what is the probability that you will breathe in enough particles to become sick? So if we go to the next slide, we'll look at a specific area that hopefully will be of interest to you all to start with. So riding a chairlift is generally low risk, even when it's stationary. And to note, in all of these graphs, you'll see this line, the critical infection rate, and this is 0.5%. So it is 5 out of 1,000. And that's what we've deduced as a conservative estimate in Alta to prevent any sort of outbreak. So yeah, that is a 15-minute chairlift ride, stops a few minutes, but people are generally safe when there are 4 people on it. If we go to the next slide, there's the chairlift line, which is a little bit more risky. People are standing shoulder to shoulder, especially people are breathing heavily, which is potentially realistic at the bottom of the slopes. It's really important that face coverings are worn, especially that the volume of the line is kept down. So protocol there, keeping people's face coverings on as well as keeping the volume of conversation down. So ideally nobody's yelling, nobody's being boisterous, because again, more particles are coming out of your mouth when you're doing something like that. Next slide, we'll go to a locker room. So a small space that potentially doesn't have a lot of natural ventilation. We looked at a locker room of around 900 square feet. 10 guests at a time would be safest if talking was kept to a minimum in this space, or if a HEPA filter was added. I live in a dorm at MIT right now. We have HEPA filters in all different parts of the dorm where there isn't natural airflow from doors and windows being open. You can imagine a locker room might have this issue if it's in a basement. HEPA filters can be purchased for I think around like $300 or $400. Another important protocol to consider depending on the architecture of the space. If we go to 10 guests in that locker room, you can see, which is next slide, Sarah, you can see that adding a HEPA filter and reducing any sort of talking doesn't bring the risk below this infection rate.
This is with 20. This is with 20. You had 10 on the previous slide.
Correct. Yeah. So, and I wanted to show this just to note that in small spaces, sometimes it really just comes down to limiting the amount of people who are there. It's maybe you can't do enough with reducing talking or adding filtration. You just needed to reduce the amount of people in a space. Shown here. Yeah. And that brings me to kind of the riskiest area that we're going to show today, which is indoor dining. So in the restaurant we looked at, I believe sized around 2,000 square feet with tables socially distanced, but 70 guests and 8 servers in total, which is still quite a lot in this space. We found that even with all of the windows open in the space, which is 7 for this specific area, and normal talking levels, 11% of the dining population could get sick after a 2-hour experience, which is of course, very high when we're trying to keep that number below 0.5%. You can also see that graph on the bar on the right, the 60% level. That is from loud talking, which is potentially realistic once people have a few glasses of wine. So again, I wanted to make sure that it's understood that loud talking and shouting in any way can be really, really detrimental to the likelihood of people getting infected. So to try to solve this, if we go to the next slide, we attempted to implement a few different protocols that were perhaps more severe. So you can see reduce the dining time to 60 minutes to an hour rather than 2 hours, reduce capacity, and then add 3 HEPA filters, say. But we could not find a reasonable set of protocol that reduced infection below this 0.5% level for this space that we were looking at. So yeah, I think, next slide, and I'll summarize kind of everything I'm saying. The point here is to emphasize the effect of a few simple protocol. If we think back to the story that Amar presented earlier, we can overlay a few of the protocol I just mentioned, such as reduced dining periods, limited loud talking when social distancing isn't possible, and enforced quietness in emergency situations, say on the UTA bus during an evacuation. And we can see how those protocols would result in a relatively drastic decrease in risk probability. So yeah, that is where our analysis section ends. I think perhaps we should pass it to Guang unless we want to stop for questions about all of that now.
Let me, Guang is going to talk about a different set of issues about an app that can be used, right, Guang?
Yep, yep.
So we have 11 minutes left before the town council meeting proper starts. So why don't we stop for just a minute and see if the town council members want to pose any questions to about what they've seen. The presumption in the restaurant for breakfast for Kevin was that was socially distanced, I presume.
Yeah, like the restaurant that we looked at and then we used for the Kevin situation was spec'd at the tables being socially distanced from the other tables.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I will point out that we've had some interested parties in Alta give us some of the metrics of actual spaces in Alta. So this hypothetical situation is not too distant from what we would actually be faced with in Alta in terms of the space.
Are any of these protocols being currently imposed or suggested in any ski area like in Colorado where their health guidelines were involved, or in Utah or Alta specifically?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, Margaret, they can't be imposed unless the state health department wants to impose them. But Alta and Salt Lake County do not have the authority to do that as governments. Salt Lake County Health Department knows about these results now and is grappling with what to do. Part of the problem is the implication goes beyond Alta.
Of course.
And, you know, my response when they asked me about that again this morning was, if I were the governor, I would be doing something about that, but I'm not the governor. And so that's way beyond my pay grade.
Well, that's why I asked, because we know that Colorado in particular, in Summit County, other places, has established protocols for the ski areas to submit their plans to the health department prior to the ski areas opening, I believe.
I think one of the takeaways here is that 6 feet of distance between tables and other kinds of guidelines that we have all heard about for months are not scientifically validated in terms of their risk. They are rules of thumb or heuristics. And now that this experience, we've had this much more experience with this virus, this team has better information than what led to those heuristics in the first place. That doesn't mean that anybody's internalized or adopted this kind of analysis yet. This is being developed. My understanding is that the main customer for this kind of analysis is the National Institutes of Health, and it will be delivered to them soon. But this is part of our engagement has been part of the development of this. Okay.
I had a quick question.
Yeah, Sharon.
I wondered if any of your scenarios worked with rotating population, which is pretty common in restaurants. So was it a static group of people for an hour that you ran your scenarios with, or did it assume people coming and going?
For the purposes of this analysis, it was static, which I think we could say was, so for example, like 70 people in the dining room, there are 70 people in there at once. So of course there is some change in our numbers that would come from, the influx and outflux of that group. Very good point. But I think the 70, for example, with the restaurant, having 70 people there is a conservative way of approaching the analysis. And that was kind of that is MIT's approach with analysis as well as ours in keeping things on the conservative side.
Okay, let me ask Guang to go ahead since we have about 5 minutes left.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, some of the next steps we're taking. So just really briefly again, yeah, basically from all our analysis, we kind of just we're not necessarily trying to give you guys advice. We're just trying to give you our information because there's, a lot of misinformation when it comes to COVID related things, and like stuff like minimizing talking can help a lot. But yeah, basically for the next slide, we kind of have an app that we're currently trying to get into the App Store. And this is right now, it's going to have some functionalities like working with the employees of Alta and giving them like daily wellness checks, and then possibly other information and functionalities with regards to Alta and the surrounding areas. And the other exciting thing we're doing is a website, which we're working with basically us four and also a few more people who are on a technical team. And right now it's not fully up yet, but if you go to safeski.com, it'll currently have, I guess, these slides. And in the future, we're going to try to implement a lot of these other functionalities. Like we're working with hotels who want to book times for when to check in and when to pick up food from restaurants, and also reserve locker rooms. And all of these different things, we want to basically make it online so that users who come to Alta or stay in Alta can have both a good experience and a way of, communicating their own information virtually, so that like it minimizes the risk of COVID. And one thing we really want to emphasize is that we're really, really open to any suggestions of what you guys want us to do or what you guys think is helpful. So definitely, if you have any suggestions, let us know or reach out to us afterwards. We'll have some other detailed info as well as like a more detailed report on our website soon, but that is pretty much it. We pretty much just want to serve you guys as a community, and we're kind of just MIT students who have some info on COVID and we want to pass it along. But at the end of the day, it's your city. You guys know about what the people want, and we do think that the ski season and basically just having a ski season run well this year is really important for everyone. So thank you guys so much for listening, and let us know if you have any questions.
Thanks, Kwong. Are there?
I have a question. Would these slides be available to us?
Yeah, I think right now, if you go to this website link,
Mhm.
it should be there. It might take a little bit of time, but you can try it. I feel like it might just work now, and if not, it'll work by tomorrow or so.
Okay, great, thanks.
So, excuse me, one other question. Is it that website where you wanted to receive comments or suggestions for what people would like to see in the app?
I think right now maybe email would be the best option. So maybe we can link our emails, or if you email Mayor Harris, maybe he could also forward it to us.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to forward it on, Margaret.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Or anybody else for that matter.
Is it an accurate takeaway that looking at those figures for the restaurant, 70 people in a 2,000 square foot space, all windows open, that there isn't a way to do it that seems to hit the relative safe risk that you were shooting for of 0.5% of infection rate?
Yeah, that would be a accurate statement.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate result, Sheridan. I was encouraged by the chairlift result a little bit. Kind of thought that the chairlift line might be more problematic than it was. Although you can see that if people are shouting, that's probably a bad thing in the lift line. But one of the things I said to the county this morning and last week was, this result means to me, I will not be eating indoors in a restaurant for the duration of the pandemic. And the combination of speaking and no masks is really the source of this problem. What should be done about that? What are the strategies that could work? Is going to be a complicated issue if you want to act on this information. And of course, this is going to be up to each business to make a decision about what to do in light of this report.
A quick question, if I may, in the few seconds remaining. When we are provided the report, or when the website goes live, then as part of the report, is there going to be a section that shows the hard science, experimentally based, using the scientific method upon which this is based?
Yeah, it'll have a lot more detail on how we're exactly getting those numbers, and citations from the NIH and the CDC. So just for like the dining question specifically, for example, like because it's indoors, like we're calculating the flux of air through the windows, and even though it's like open windows, we're finding that basically the amount of air that goes in and out isn't enough to like get rid of all the COVID particles that are emitted. So we'll have a bunch of more detailed info in the reports.
So we'll be able to see the actual laboratory and environmental studies tracing particles and things like that this is based on.
No, I think to go back a few steps, we have a set of pretty much calculators that have been built by a few leading faculty at MIT in the mathematics and mechanical engineering department, who have been working on what you're talking about, sort of like the science of how particles come out of your mouth and move through the air. And they have made these pretty much spreadsheets that are filled with a variety of equations that govern the way particles move based off their research. And that's what our analysis is based off of. We have not personally done the science of the particles coming out of the mouth and traveling through space. So that will not be in our report. But we do have all of and understand all of the governing equations, and we've been doing all the math to get the numbers that we showed you today.
Right. And it's like, although it sounds like it's a lot of it's theoretical, much of it is pretty much backed up by experimental evidence and like studies from other places that have shown that like the calculations are somewhat accurate. And I guess, as Emma said, we might not have all the citations for those, but we probably have some of them that we can put in the report.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you spending this time with us. You're welcome to stick around while we have our while I move to starting the town council meeting, and I'll be talking with you all before long.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's see. It's time for us to, for me to call the town council meeting to order. Okay, so the first item on our agenda, I've already, for those of you who are joining us now-ish, I've already read the declaration, the determination regarding conducting the town of Alton public meetings without an anchor location before we started the work session. So I'm just going to move on to the calling to order the town council meeting of November 12th, 2020. The first item on our agenda is citizen input. Piper or Jen, I don't know if what we've received actually.
We received one letter. It's posted on our website. It's from Del Draper. I'm not sure if he chose to appear. Jen, did you hear back from him?
Dell is with us. Yes. He's submitted his public comment in writing.
Okay. All right. So that is part of the record. Do you, I think that we don't need to read that, but it's there, the council people have read it and it's posted online.
Can you say something about the topic? Is it about the zoning?
I don't remember reading it, but I think it was on the zoning.
Okay. Well, I just want to reassure Dell that for today, in any case, we're going to, in all likelihood, postpone any action on the zoning for another month. Okay, is that the only?
No, I have a whole bunch of people actually. We have a bunch of people as attendees and I have a list going. Just to remind everybody, I guess we keep our public comment to a limit of 2 minutes. So I'll be trying to pay attention to the time here. And the order that I have right now, just so everybody can be prepared, because I'll kind of queue you guys up one at a time. On the attendee list is Kyle Maynard, Pat Shea, Brent Pratt, Connie Marshall, and then Sean, I think it's Ribble, I apologize, is the order. So we'll start from there. Kyle, I'm going to move you over. Kyle should have joined us.
He's appeared on my screen, or at least his name was there. There he is.
All right, I think I'm in. I'm unmuted. So my public comment was going to be in regards to the zoning ordinance that was going to happen in the work session. Since that was delayed, I just want to extend my thanks to the council and to the staff for the amount of time that they've put into that ordinance. And I also want to thank the council for their time yesterday and today and listening to our phone calls and being willing to delay this a little bit further, as frustrating as that is, to try to find a solution to this jurisdictional question so that it doesn't impact Alta jurisdiction over private land. So I look forward to working with everyone on this issue for the next month. Thank you.
I'll just say, Kyle, I appreciated getting the call and the important comments you made. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Pat Shea is now moving over.
Unmoved. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I want to echo Kyle's comments about appreciating the hard work that everybody's been doing. In law school, I was considered peculiar because I actually enjoyed conflicts, which is a peculiar and esoteric area of the law. But I got my highest grade in that. And I want to address just the question of jurisdiction. There have been some statements that there is exclusive jurisdiction. There is exclusive jurisdiction only if the statute that creates the entity says that it's exclusive. So Congress, for the Organic Act of the Forest Service, and in any regulations that come from it, has to say exclusive. And I have cited to some of you EPA that because they can't manage all of their responsibilities, delegates their authorities to the states through an MOU process. And therefore the states cannot go below the EPA standard, but they can go above it. And so I think the most important thing that I hope we can work on in the next month is finding a way to have the town of Alta be more or less first in line to review applications, whether it's on the Forest Service or on Salt Lake City public utility lands, so that you're kept in the circle. And I think if that happens, many of the problems that the town has been trying to deal with over the last year could be resolved. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Do you want me to address that, Mayor? You're muted.
Thanks. Not right now. I just think that we'll have to investigate the town's authority thoroughly.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, Jen?
I think Brent should be with us, Brent Pratt. Maybe in the process, let's see here. Oh, there he is. Hi, Brent.
There we go. Hi, how are you? Listen, on the good. Listen, I would like to request the town to consider the Utah CPACE program. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to read a very short blip so that you'll understand what this is. But it is allowing us to take our short-term debt on the Snow Pine and other lodges, if they choose to, for energy conservation or water conservation, avail themselves of the same program, but it allows me to put long-term debt on the property, which is important to us because it allows us to stabilize when we've had this COVID reaction over this since March. So let me just read just a small blurb on what the CPACE program is. This program will benefit our group, the recently completed Snow Pine Lodge, by allowing us to obtain long-term financing at competitive rates. Once adopted, CPACE can benefit additional projects that seek to improve their energy efficiency and water conservation, as well as incorporate seismic upgrades and multiple other efficiency measures. The CPACE program is an economic development tool which benefits both existing buildings and new development projects of all real estate types. The program was adopted on the Utah state level and has already helped to fund 5 other projects throughout the state, including the new Convention Center Hotel in Salt Lake City. The CPACE program requires no funding from the local government and is 100% financed by private capital. CPACE allows for specific financing and energy efficient water conservation and resiliency measures for all privately held and commercial real estate types. CPACE is a long-term fixed rate, non-recourse financing that cannot accelerate and transfers with the title of the property. An owner requested voluntary special CPACE assessment is placed on the tax parcel, delineating it as an energy assessment area, after which the assessment is immediately assigned to the third-party lender. All responsibility for collection, oversight, and any potential enforcement issues are held by the capital provider, who indemnifies the municipality against any further legal action at the time of closing. There are no tax implications for or involvement by the town of Alva after closing, when all responsibilities transfer to the third-party lender. There is minimal municipal involvement overall, as the state has appointed a third-party independent administrator to ensure all projects meet both legislative and technical requirements. The third-party administrator also manages the opt-in process, which is what we're asking Alta to do, as well as transactional logistics as required. So my request is that you expedite the adoption of this program to allow us to recapitalize our property. Thank you.
I'll just, thank you. I'll just say that we endeavor to support our businesses in ways that we can, and we are certainly happy to have you upgrade your environmental sustainability. So we have been looking into this. We're aware of your request, and we just need to make sure that we have our ducks in a row and make sure that our legal counsel is satisfied from the point of view of the town.
Great. Well, I have people on this program on the call if they would like to ask any questions about it. Of course, time is of the essence, that we move as quickly as we can.
Yeah, I don't think that on this call right now during the town council meeting is the right way to have that conversation, but
Sure.
we'll have, I know that our attorney has been working on this problem.
Excuse me, I would ask if you could just quickly direct us to if there is one website that describes the program so that we can, those on the call can look into it further.
Sure. Sean, can you respond to that?
Yes, let me just pull the website really quickly for Utah PACE. 1 second. Yeah, Utah PACE, cpace.com. So Utah, C is in commercial, and then PACE.com.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thanks, Brent. I'm going to give the floor to Sean, who's up next.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brent. So I'm Sean Riggle. I'm the director for Greenworks Lending. We are the direct capital group that just does CPACE. Obviously, we have an involvement with Utah, but we've also financed over 350 projects nationally. The program has been in existence for almost a decade, and we are a direct capital provider. So we actually work directly with the municipalities, but then also with Utah PACE. It's a great program in the state of Utah because it's modeled directly after Colorado, and Colorado's program has been around for about 6 years now. And I actually sit on the board for the Colorado New Energy Improvement District. So we've seen it be a tremendous benefit for economic development, but also kind of pushing public interest as it relates to revitalization and energy efficiency. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to kind of echo Brent's statement and just let you guys know that this is not a new concept. And we, like I said, have deployed over 400 million of capital across 26 states. So yeah, it's a great program. The administrator is very sound and financially savvy. So that website will give you the information you need. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to answer them.
Can we make sure we have your contact information?
Absolutely. Yep. My
You
pleasure.
can give it to you've communicated with Jen to get on this call, so you could give it to her. That'd be good.
I have, sir.
Yeah,
Yep, and I'll give some other materials. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Jen, you're muted.
Thank you, Piper. Mayor, the only other person that I was aware of that wanted to speak is having issue connecting. So I think we are through public comment.
Okay, so then thank you, Jen, and thank you for your input to all those who spoke. Whoever it is, I can't remember, who didn't get a chance to speak, feel free to reach out in other formats. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Alta ski area update from Mike Mon, who I think I saw earlier. I know I saw earlier. I think he's still here.
Yes.
Hi, Mike.
Good to see you. Hello there. How are you today? So we've had a little snow. We got just about 32 inches of snow out of that last storm. It's settled down to about 20. We have a lot of skiing enthusiasts who are out and about on the mountain every day. Unfortunately, many of them don't seem to be interested in wearing masks or even staying too socially distanced, and it's a little bit of a disappointment to us. But we've noticed that the group that, last week we had a lot of high school students that appeared that were coming up and taking advantage of the man-made snow, and made their own little terrain park. That group has kind of moved on a little bit, and the group we've seen the last few days has been more of our backcountry skiing group that have been out and about on the mountain, and they're a little bit more socially responsible, I believe, from what we're seeing. We're continuing to make preparations to open the ski area. The current forecast is we've got another storm on the doorstep. It originally looked like a fairly significant storm. It seems to be waning a little bit, may not give us as much snow as we were hoping. It's been cold, and we've been making a fair amount of snow. We think those temperatures are going to start giving away to it's a little bit warmer temperatures in the day here, maybe starting tomorrow, and we'll have to start shutting down snowmaking during the daytime anyway, but we've had a good run, made a fair amount of snow. We're continuing to evaluate a little bit a target opening date. We've posted the 21st. We're a little concerned about opening on a Saturday. So we're considering a couple of other alternatives, maybe going a little bit before that date or maybe pushing it back to the 23rd. We've kind of decided we'll wait and see what it looks like next Monday after the storm has come through from there. But we're also monitoring very closely what's happening in the industry. We've got, Park City is looking at the 20th, Snow Basin the 25th, Snowbird's still on the 30th. Brighton may go next weekend also. They're evaluating, and just depends on the storm for them, and also getting their snowmaking to the top of their mountain there. So there's some activity, and as for us all, what Mother Nature does plays a very big role in what we're trying to do. We're hoping that the storm does give us some significant snowfall. We'd like to be in the position of being able to bring Supreme online, if possible, before Thanksgiving to help spread people out. We went back and historically looked at our numbers for what happens this time of the year and around Thanksgiving time, and are comfortable that we'll be able to have an appropriate capacity when we determine what that may be as we get a little closer be able to control that with our parking. Most of our lodging properties won't have a lot of people in them, which is about a quarter of our business. So that part will be down just by that alone. And when we look at that and some other issues, we think that's going to work out. Our analysis of all of our parking lots is we are down at below 75% of capacity just by making the changes we're going to make in our parking. So that's a little bit of an update that we have. Just wondered if the town council had any questions for us or anything we can be of assistance with.
I'll just pose a couple of questions to you, if you don't mind, Mike. I understand that A-Basin opened kind of secretly without any announcement.
Yeah, that if we decided to go early, we're considering a similar strategy of maybe just opening quietly for a day. That's about all it would last before people would figure it out, just so that we could get some people in the process and test our systems. Yes.
Yeah, A-Basin is further from Denver than we are from Salt Lake City. So I think you might get 15 minutes. I don't know if you get a full day, but
that's true. And we think all of the ski areas in Ski Utah are very concerned about opening and this pent up demand for people to come skiing. I anticipate that we'll be closing our parking the first, for sure, probably the first weekend that we're open, if not. And I anticipate Thanksgiving through that weekend that we would probably be full. We hope it's a little lighter than that, but we anticipate we'll be closing down because we'll have a set capacity we're trying to reach, and we'll have to turn some people away, unfortunately.
The other question I was going to pose was, my understanding is that Wolf Creek is open in Colorado and is open only for skiing and for restrooms and is not open for any of the other amenities. And I'm wondering, is that a viable strategy from your point of view, or just is that a bad idea?
We have several things we've looked at. That's one of them. It's not where we intend to start, but it's definitely a position we could end up there. We could end up, we're also evaluating the event that, it's not very positive where the cases are headed in the state of Utah. And we could see that we are not allowed to have restaurants open. We may not even be able to run ski lifts if things continue to accelerate. We recognize that even if we were in the position we didn't run the chairlifts, we'll have 500 or more people here a day hiking and skiing. And probably the baseline strategy is we just charge for parking and we don't open anything else. And then, or it could be something where we're running just ski lifts and restrooms with shelter. It's a little challenging. The shelter question for us is a little challenging because, when you have people that need some shelter, how do we address them? Or do we just say it's your car, it's your vehicle, what you came in? So we're having some of those discussions and exploring those options in that mix at the same time. And it's a fine line balance between, how do we make all of this work and at the same time take care of our employees in the mix. So I think every business is struggling with how to make all that work.
Yeah. Well, thanks for all your hard work. I'm sure that it's a tough position. Bunch of trade-offs. Anybody have any questions for Mike?
I just had a question in terms of Alps. You mentioned last month that you were anticipating to be ready to open at reduced capacity, and assuming that health-wise it's possible, are you in a position to do that?
Yes, the Alps project has been completed. We've got our certificate of occupancy. We have a bunch of little teeny things that are on a punch list that we're trying to get the contractor to finish up. Yeah, but we are working towards preparing to open Alps. And one of the things that will be associated with the new opening of Alf's is we will have an outdoor coffee/waffle shop down on the lower level where people can do takeout and not have to come into the building. And we have some restrooms that are accessible from that level also, that you don't come into the building and access. So we've actually added a fair amount of restroom capacity this summer. In the Albion ticket office, we have reworked those restrooms, and there's now, I think, 3 new, the fixture counts up by 3 in the Albion ticket office, that public restroom. And at Alf's, the count for the public is going to be up about 10. And so that we've added capacity in those areas. I wish I had some more capacity on the Wildcat side just in case, but I don't have that. And you may have seen we've got a food trailer here off the Wildcat lot that we're looking to put into service here. And then there's like a container over in the Albion lot that will have some food service also. Just trying to provide people more alternatives to pick up something where they don't go indoors and stay outdoors. We're actually also kind of following up from the MIT study is we're looking at trying to limit dining time to 30 minutes. So half of what they started at 2 hours, and we're down trying to keep it at 30 minutes or less if we can, and encouraging people to just, minimize your time indoors, please, wherever you can. That's one of our strategies we're trying to implement.
Thank you for your information. It's so helpful, Mike. Of course, we want your success. Have you set a number as to what your upper capacity will be, or what you're thinking that is?
Our initial, we went through, and we had done this a couple of years ago, actually, where we went in and we analyzed what is all of the parts and pieces. What's the capacity on the mountain? What's the capacity of the chairlifts? What's the capacity of the restaurants? All of those components were analyzed. For example, the mountain capacity is over 7,000, but lift capacity is around 6,100. So, there's some differences in capacity that were done by a third party called EcoSign. Not EcoSign, but it is EcoSign. It is EcoSign that did that. And so that was helpful for us as we started to look at how do we deal with the COVID restrictions, with the reducing food and beverage capacity by 40%. And our capacity, we're probably getting a little uncomfortable in the ski area when we go over 6,500 people. We had a couple of days last year we were over that number, but our capacity for this year, I think we're trying to target not going over 4,000. Is where we're starting today. We recognize that number is going to be less early season, and we recognize that number may adjust as we learn a little bit more of how things work. We may find that, for example, we have this mountain travel sentiment survey that was done by the Ski Utah, and they found that 50% of the people do not plan to eat at a ski area this year, not to use the restaurants. We don't know if that's going to be true or not. But if that does, then maybe we have the opportunity for a little bit more capacity. Or if more people want to eat than we can accommodate, then we maybe have to have a little less capacity. So we recognize things are going to have to flex up and down a little bit. And there's a little bit of there'll be some trial and error in this as we get a feel for what is the behavior actually of the skiers that do come. And we need to be flexible and adjustable to try to accommodate appropriate physical spacing, get people wearing their masks, minimizing the time indoors, and having that work for the guest as well as our employees.
All right, thank you, Mike. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Okay, Jen, I guess we're ready for the UFA. If, yeah, there's Jerry.
I got cut out for just a minute. Are you ready for me?
Yes, sir.
All right. So just want to review a couple numbers. Q3 stats for UFA call volume, a total of 13. For the month of October, we had 10 total. So we're seeing an increase in our call volume in the month of October compared to just the general calls that we had for the third quarter. So 2 of those were fire calls, 8 were EMS calls. I know you talked initially at the beginning of the meeting. Our big focus right now is dealing with COVID. Almost 4,000 today. So an incredible increase in the numbers that we are seeing. Based on the governor's meeting on Sunday, our chief came out and we're changing things back to the way we were doing things in the spring, just as far as staff is working for the most part remotely. We've emphasized the importance of mask wearing by all of our personnel when we are in an office. And in stations, we're asking all of our personnel to wear masks while they're in a station unless they're in their individual dorm rooms. So that includes when they're out in the ambulance and the fire engines, when they're driving, they're to be wearing masks. We've implemented health checks in the morning and in the evening. So every 12 hours, we're doing health checks, and we're also doing station cleaning. So we've had a significant increase in the number of UFA personnel that have had COVID. So from the start of this, we've had 26 total personnel that have tested positive. Since September, we've had 17. So of those 26, 17 of them have occurred since September. So we're seeing an increase in our own numbers. So our main worry and our concern is if we have staff that continue to increase in positive numbers, we could have a staffing issue. Salt Lake City had a significant exposure, and they had 10% of their staff that was in quarantine at one time. So it took them a little bit to get over that. So we're doing everything that we can to limit exposures to each other. Again, I think I've said it in the past, all of our people that have tested positive have not been related to work. It's all been related to off-work exposures, either from family or in the social atmospheres. We're just emphasizing the importance of being careful at home, being careful with your exposures, and don't bring it to work. We do have continuity of operations plans in place. So as we face increases in numbers, we have plans in place so that we can continue to operate. One of our big worries and our concerns is hospital bed space availability, but probably even more important is staff to take care of patients. You've got to have staff to take care of people that are going to the hospital. So we are in good communication with our hospital partners. We're aware of what their capabilities are currently. They're doing okay right now, but they are definitely concerned, as we are, with the increase in numbers. And we're keeping an eye on that. So as far as other things within UFA, we wound up our wildland season. We had our captain's testing process is finished now, and we have people in place to fill vacancies for retirements. The EMS division, which is the division that I oversee, we just went through the RFP process recruiting a new physician medical director. So we're required to have a doctor that works with us in order to have licensing for our paramedics and our EMTs. So we're in the process of recruiting for that. We just made an announcement today awarding that to the University of Utah Department of Emergency Medicine. So that's a pretty big shift from what we have had for the last several numbers of years. We had just a single doctor that was our contracted doctor, and now we've contracted with the Department of Emergency Medicine. So they identify a single physician that's responsible with his license for the things that we do. But it's in addition to that, a huge resource of having the backing of the university as well as several other physicians to help with our training programs, our quality assurance programs, and those sorts of things. So we're excited to partner with the University of Utah, and that will start here within the next month or two. I think that's about it as far as the stuff I have written down. Any questions for me?
I have one question for you, Jay. So is the UFA board and UFSA board going to continue to meet at the headquarters down there, the emergency management?
The information that I saw from the chief is that all of our meetings, including just our internal committee meetings, are going to be done via Zoom.
Okay.
If we have 6 or more people, if we're able to do it in a room where we can have adequate spacing, then we're allowed to do in-person meetings. But beyond that, we're suggesting that all meetings and correspondence be done virtually.
Okay. I know that some board members have been coming to the meetings in the last couple of months, but I won't be surprised to see that stop.
Well, I think the information that was shared at the beginning, just from the MIT folks, would be interesting. Just because you have a large room and you can maintain 6 feet of space doesn't necessarily mean that you're completely safe.
Yeah. You can offer the service to the chief if he wants to send the building metrics. I'll tell you what the parameters are. We need the airflow if possible.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from town council members for the chief? Okay. All right. Next item is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes October 14th, 2020 minutes, treasurer's report, and staff report. So if there's a motion to approve those, I'd be happy to have that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, discussion. All those in favor then of approving the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, none opposed, I think. Okay, so that passes. All right, the next item are questions regarding said departmental reports. Anybody have any questions for any of the staff members?
I wondered if I could ask our marshal about how to put in perspective the number of suicide attempts that are happening in the canyon. It seems like this is just going up and up and up. And I wonder if we want to begin to be a little bit more strategic about how to handle this public health crisis.
So I don't have any statistical information that goes canyon wide beyond what I've given to you in the staff reports. Anecdotally, I would say the number of people in mental health crisis that we've encountered in the last 6 months has been slightly up from what we're used to seeing. Historically, the spring and summer and fall months bring those kind of calls to the canyon as the canyon gets more accessible. There's more, side roads that people can get into. And that's really a Wasatch Front wide dynamic. But, internally, we talk about it a lot. We do have one of our deputies who's got specialty training. It's called CIT training, to get people to mental health resources. But we are gearing up for that likelihood.
Thank you.
One of the issues I think is that people who have this, who are imagining harming themselves, often I think are looking for a relatively secluded place to do that. And so the canyons become an attractive and it attracts that attention, I think. So I can tell you, Sheridan, my experience with young people at the university is remarkable at how many emails I get as a department chair or just from my own class. I've referred a half dozen of my 25 undergraduates to the dean of students on there's a link for, a student of concern when they've expressed having problems. This has been a very difficult season for people.
And Sheridan, if I could, although not specific to your question about suicide, one of the things that we're really trying to strategize is, we're hearing that, the alcohol serving establishments in town are by and large going to be for lodge patrons only. And so we're really looking at how alcohol and substance use scenarios might play out in other parts of town. One of the things that we are doing is we're working to get Narcan for overdoses in all the police vehicles and the training that goes along with that.
I think that's great. And I applaud ACE's attempts to really address this within the community. I just feel like we're playing catch up all the time as opposed to kind of getting ahead of this. And it's just the nature of the state of the world right now, I suppose.
Thanks, Sheridan. Thanks, Mike. Any other comments or questions about the consent agenda and the staff reports? Rather? Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is my report. I have a few things on this list today. So the first thing I'll talk about is COVID. We continue to operate our office, as you know, with one staff member at a time and no walk-in visitors. And we don't see any reason to amend that back to our normal pre-COVID operating procedures. I continue to attend the Salt Lake County Mayor's COVID and other emergency briefings each Friday. Grim, I think, is the mood at the Salt Lake County Health Department. They are a little bit, I don't know, I'll just say that. The case rate for the last 14 days is 1,162 per 100,000. Several weeks ago, when I saw the first draft of MIT's spreadsheet that led to those tables, their assumption was 1,000 per 100,000, like it was today. And I thought that was pretty high. But turns out it's not. 39, as we've said, more than 3,900 cases statewide today. There's some talk that is the Halloween effect now, perhaps. There is a new emergency order from the governor. Chris, I'm sorry, I didn't take a look at what you sent out yesterday or the day before, but did you link to that order? Is that on our website now?
It is, yeah. So that's in the breaking news section, and we have a COVID resources page.
Okay.
That has kind of a compendium of current and previous orders, guidance, etc. And it'll stay on there if it gets buried on the homepage.
Okay, good. I suppose I could have just asked you to refresh everybody's memory on that, but I have been pretty tied up the last couple of days since that last newsletter went out. So that's in place until the 23rd, which is before Thanksgiving. And I guess we'll see what happens if there's an extension of that. But I want to urge everybody to have a small Thanksgiving and a safe Thanksgiving, because I think we'll see another surge after that. There has been some discussion of a testing protocol for Alta. The Alta ski lifts and the Alta Clinic have made some progress on this, I believe. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about it. The availability of the tests themselves seems to be the limiting factor. I have requests into both the county and the state about getting more testing capability for our community. You know, I have I don't know that I should show it, but Mill Creek, Mayor Silvestrini's daughter is a COVID, she's doing intensive care work with COVID patients as a physician at St. Mark's Hospital. And they've made a PSA. It's 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. And I have it up. I can show it to you, or we could just post the link. Is there, maybe I'll just put the link in the chat. How's that as a way to do this?
If you send it to me, yeah, Mayor, I can put it on the.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat. You'll see
Perfect.
it.
I'll grab it.
All panelists. Okay. It's not really about Alta, but it's about the hospital situation. So it's pretty interesting. And since we don't have our own hospital, we'd be down there. So, okay. I have spent many hours learning about the pandemic in my various roles, both as a department chair at the university, who's participating in the decisions about live classes versus online classes, as a member of the MIT Harvard Task Force, interfacing with that team of MIT students in my role as a mayor and working with Salt Lake County and some with the state. The bottom line, I think, and I think that presentation demonstrated that we need to go beyond the rules of thumb that we've grown accustomed to. 6 feet of distance in restaurants is probably, not going to be sufficient, given that people talk and don't have face coverings on, to maintain a reasonable level of risk, it seems to me. So I urge everybody as individuals and as businesses in our community to think hard about this information and to act as stewards of themselves individually, but more importantly for the people who are at this town council meeting and their businesses, their customers, and the broader community. Continue to work on how to avoid having visitors to the canyon end up being stuck without shelter, especially overnight, but also during the day. One of the analyses that group did was, and one of the more enthusiastic clients for this analysis has been the UTA, and we'll be talking to them. We can keep the risk at about the same level to an individual of the operating procedure that the UTA is planning on, which is 20 people per bus with a face covering. The problem with that is if we had a reason to get those bus customers out of Alta quickly, 20 passengers per bus is too slow. We can put 60 people on a bus and maintain that same risk level if they don't talk. So I've been working with Salt Lake County and the state to have, my jurisdiction ends at the town of Alta boundary anyway. So it would have to be a county health order, and we would have to be counting on peer pressure on the bus to enforce it, because there won't be anybody on the bus to enforce it. But if we can get people to be on the bus and not talk and wear face coverings, we can get a lot of people up and down, out of the canyon pretty quickly. I continue to be concerned about the plan to have Highway 210 closed as a manner of controlling capacity at the ski areas. I don't love that plan. As we were talking, I've just been forwarded it for my signature, and I'll be having to figure out what to do about that. As everybody knows, Vice President Biden was elected and is now the president-elect. Locally, I look forward to working with our incoming governor, Spencer Cox, our continuing county mayor, Jenny Wilson, and our new representative in the House, the State House, is Gay Lynn Benyon, who won the seat that had been held by Marie Polson, who was for her career, a good friend to the town. And I know Galen, and I'm confident that she will do what she can to help us when we need her help. Paul Farr was retained as our Justice Court judge, and throwing in my own editorial comment about that, I was happy to see it. CARES funding has a third tranche. Resort communities will be getting more than our per capita allocation would have. That will be getting more than a per capita allocation would have recommended, quite a bit more actually. And we have learned that at least a good deal of public safety salary funding is eligible without much need to elaborate, to demonstrate or substantiate the payout. So that's good news. We'll be able to get more money and we'll be able to spend it. If we don't have enough eligible expenses, you have to return it, is the issue. We issued an RFP for new auditing services for our budget. 7 firms responded. We've chosen Gilbert and Stewart, which is the first time our auditors have changed in a number of years. Their bid was less than half the price of our previous firm, so it seemed like a very good budget move. And Steve Rowley, who is basically providing some accounting services to us, has a lot of confidence in that firm. So we were happy to move in that direction, and the audit is underway now. The architectural firm Inead is going to be finishing up in early December. They continue to work with the advisory committee, had another community meeting, and has received lots of good input about their study. Per their request, we are looking at having a little bit more defined building operational options, potential costs and sources of funding, and talking about the sustainability, financial sustainability of operations and maintenance. And that was something the advisory committee was interested in seeing as well. Related to that, the CRA work that the county was working with us on was kind of put on hold because of their diminished resources, thanks to COVID and some personnel losses. They've recently met with us again. Some of the tax increment funding options have been pretty hard hit by the pandemic. So in the short run, some of those funds have been taken off the table by the county, at least for now, but we'll see how long that lasts. Finally, I put my property tax check in the mail. Don't forget to do that before the end of the month. Okay, so in terms of the timeline, I visited the board meeting at the Friends of Alta on October 15th and briefed them on my perspectives of some of the issues facing the town for the upcoming ski season. On the 20th, I was at the UFA and UFSA board meetings. Mostly we were talking about the quarterly financial reports, the fraud assessment. There's a fraud and risk assessment that we've had to do as an organization down there, the 2021 budget and CARES funding and how to assess members. We're actually in pretty good shape because it's a side benefit of being a contracting member through the rest of 2020 is the CARES Act money can go right back into our budget. If the UFSA is funded directly from the taxpayers, so that's a little bit more complicated, and the county is working on that for them. Council of Mayors on October 22nd, I raised the issue so that mayors in the valley would understand something about the winter operations in the canyons. There was a discussion of anticipated civic unrest related to the presidential election and the fallout, which from that, but so far at least that hasn't happened happily. On the 26th, several of us met with Salt Lake County, Rudy Mathis and Dina Blaze on the CRA and tax increment funding. On the 28th, met with Inead, John Gouldner and Jen Clancy regarding the need to develop a pro forma for the operations of the community center. so that when it gets rolled out as a conceptual idea, it doesn't look totally infeasible to actually operate. On the 29th, there was a UFA Finance Committee to approve the audit, and also a CWC Finance Committee meeting, which had to do with fraud risk assessment for that organization. Mayor Silvestrini from Mill Creek is the new treasurer of the CWC, and we talked about using some of our reserve funds to complete the dashboard, the environmental dashboard, sooner rather than later. It seems to us that the CWC needs to show people that there are some results out of that process. On October 30th, Jen and I met with Salt Lake County regarding the third CARES Act distribution, and kudos to Jen. She put together some documentation for that meeting that was really, I was very proud of our little town and our staff, way beyond what some of our peer entities had produced for that meeting. So thank you, Jen. Really great job.
My pleasure.
On the 2nd, we had the CWC meeting, and we heard from Alta Ski Lifts about a proposal to exchange some land outside of a legislated or Forest Service process. We approved our new treasurer, that was Silvestrini, adopted some changes to the employee handbook and the CWC bylaws. On the 3rd, I also met with, the 3rd, I met with Richard Saunders, who is the interim executive director of the Utah Department of Health, to brief him on my concerns about Little Cottonwood Canyon. It is a remarkable thing to talk to people, even who live in Utah, about Little Cottonwood Canyon, even if they've skied in Little Cottonwood Canyon, who haven't spent a lot of time in Little Cottonwood Canyon, apart from a few hours of skiing, about how conditions change in Little Cottonwood Canyon and how they can be as extreme as they are. That meeting led to my joining a task force for economic recovery during the pandemic, along with Levitt Partners, which is former governor and former HHS cabinet member, Mike Levitt. And I started to be engaged with them. On the 6th, I met with Jill Donovan from Levitt Partners. She was glad to hear about what I've been up to and working on. And it was interesting. I said to her, what are you trying to accomplish? And she said, well, we're trying to get the ski and winter tourism industries in Utah up safely. And I said, today's November 6th, and I think the ski areas are opening 2 weeks from today. And she admitted that they were a little bit slow out at the starting gate on this project. On the 6th, I also met with Dave Fields to learn about how Snowbird's operations are going. On November 10th, we had a road meeting with a special operating plan for snowy days. Mike, how much do you think we need to talk about that at this point in this meeting?
I'm not sure. I think, just a quick recap would be that, the emphasis is certainly going to be on more conservative in planning canyon closures. That will likely result in more overnight closures of the canyon. There's the potential for capacity related closures. And there's a lot of emphasis on all the road committee members to work together when we see big snow events coming that could create some of the bad situations the mayor's described, to make difficult decisions, including suspending lift operations and getting people out of the canyon.
We have a history of remarkable levels of cooperation on these issues, and I hope and I look forward to that continuing this winter, even though we are facing some extra risks and challenges. Thanks, Mike. Today, it's hard to remember which day things happened, sitting in front of Zoom meetings all day long. I met with the Salt Lake County Emergency Management Command. That was Chris and Mike were with me this morning to outline issues for this winter. And there's a number of tasks that they're looking into. Among them, that authority to impose the requirement not to talk on the bus, just to take one example. Before I met with them this morning, I went down to the Cottonwood Heights UDOT operations location and got my Canyon sticker. I'm pretty sure you all have heard about that and received email, and it's a good program. It took me all of 5 minutes to get my sticker. And so anyway, that's a good program. Do fill out the form ahead of time. That's important. They had the information on their device. Coming up 11/13, that's tomorrow and Saturday, is a CWC, Central Wasatch Commission Mountain Transportation Systems Summit. And that's a public meeting. If you want to attend some or any of it, you can go to the CWC website, and I'm sure the links are there. But that's how I'm going to be spending much of my day tomorrow and Saturday. On the 19th, there's a Council of Governments meeting that includes the county. And then on the 7th of December is the next CWC meeting. The following represent temporary licenses with an issue date between 10/9 and 11/6. George Fett for 30 days, Tricia Petzold for 14 days, Ryan Martell for 3 days, and Whitney Harris for 4 days. Okay, that's my report. Is there any comment or question?
Excuse me, Mayor. Could I ask, do we have the next road meeting scheduled?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I actually wrote that. Yes, it's the Mike. I got to look at a calendar. Hang on a second. I meant to say that. Thanks.
Yeah, Cliff, it'll be the second Tuesday of each month at 10 a.m.
Yeah, so it's going to be December 8th.
So December 8th. So I assume that's going to be a Zoom meeting, Mike?
Yes.
I wonder if you could do me a favor and send me a link to that.
I'll send you the link, and then we can talk offline about council participation.
Awesome. Thanks.
Any other concerns or questions? Okay. All right. The next item on our agenda is we have a guest with us, Mr. Corey Holdaway, who is with Utah Ranked Choice Voting. Ranked Choice, he's going to introduce this to us. Because we don't have the MIT group coming next, we actually can be a little bit more relaxed about the time, Corey, which is good news, because I told Corey just to introduce the issue and let the town council have a sense of where they can go to learn more about this, and that we would come back to this issue at future council meetings. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we have until April, which means the March town council meeting in our case, to implement a change in our voting procedure for our 2021 municipal election.
That's correct, Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to address the council. Can you hear me? Great.
Yes.
A couple of things I want to point out to the council. Utah Ranked Choice Voting is a 501c3 organization that was organized by a group of us after the last municipal, well, in 2018, we started working with a group called Fair Votes nationally. And then we organized locally our own C3 to promote ranked choice voting across the state. And so if you go to, do I have the ability to share my screen?
You do.
Okay. Let
Do
me,
you see it in the bottom middle of
hold
your?
on. Let me go back here.
If
Share.
you move your mouse around, yeah, it should pop up.
Got it. So this is the group, UtahRankedChoiceVoting.com. We're pretty we're very engaged in trying to get the word out to cities right now in preparation for the next municipal election. In 2018, there was a bill that was passed that allowed by the legislature that allowed cities to use ranked choice voting in municipal elections. 2 cities in the last municipal election in the state took it up and had great results. We're hoping to expand that to additional cities going forward. We've got some cities that are interested in doing it as well. The legislature is very interested in moving this forward as well. So the purpose of my addressing you today is basically just to gauge whether or not you would be interested in learning more about ranked choice voting. If you are, I would be happy to come back at a future meeting and present a PowerPoint that basically goes through what's involved with regard to ranked choice voting elections. If you want, you can go to this website. A lot of what I would be talking about would be located on this website. In addition to that, you can see some of the principles that are involved with this. Myself, Stan Lockhart, he happens to be the former Republican Party chair for, it was a few years ago. Taylor Morgan, another person that's been involved in elections, and David May and I are all kind of working to promote this across the state. I'm happy to talk more or answer any questions or whatever you'd like me to do, Mayor.
Well, let me open this up to the town council. We can give you a few more minutes. Let's if there are any questions about this. The idea here is that you would rather than vote for 2 town council members, say if there are 2 seats up and there are 3 people running, you would rank all 3 parties. I presume you only rank the people who are acceptable to you.
Yeah, you have that option. You can choose can choose to rank as many as you want to. Again, ranked choice voting would be only applied as in this slide here. You see if there were greater than 2 candidates, and the object of this is to try and secure a majority vote rather than what we ended up with in the recently completed primary elections, at least this past spring, where 35% got the current governor across the finish line. And so anyway, you've got in a city council race, say you've got 3 people running for a race. The voter ranks those 3 people, 1, 2, 3. If one of the candidates hits the 50% threshold, the election's over. If none of the candidates reach the 50% threshold, whoever happens to be the lowest in terms of that tally would be dropped, and their second choice would then be redistributed to create that that majority threshold. The value of ranked choice voting, the reason I'm so passionate about it is a number of different reasons. One is it creates a more civil type of campaign rather than campaigning on personality so much. You're campaigning on issues and trying to appeal to as many voters as you can with your ideas, rather than attacking somebody and besmirching them in hopes of being able to just get the most votes. the process whereby a city were to be would be to accomplish this, you would be asked to submit a resolution notifying the Lieutenant Governor's office by April the 15th that you're interested in having your next municipal election be run as a ranked choice voting election. I apologize. I assume your what is the population of Alta?
You mean registered voters or the total population?
Registered voters. Is it about 1,000?
Oh, no, it's less than that, 120 or so.
Oh, is that all? Okay. All right. All right. Well, I mean, we could do two things with that. One is I know you contract for services with Salt Lake, or at least I assume you contract with services with Salt Lake County. Salt Lake County is exploring the ability to be able to use ranked choice voting going forward for the next municipal election. The last time around, they didn't feel like they had that capability. The clerk today, or the clerk in a recent county council meeting indicated that she was moving towards trying to have the equipment ready for that. Although I do need to be totally transparent, she's not a big fan of it. It's something different than what she's been doing, and therefore is a little reticent to move forward.
Yeah. One advantage to the town of Alta is you don't need to run a primary election if you have more candidates than you have if you have more candidates. So that's an advantage. Just to take an illustration, there's a current situation that would have gone, I think, quite differently. There were 3 candidates in one of the 2 Senate races in Georgia. And just for simplicity's sake, it went more or less 49%. And then a libertarian candidate had 2%. And I think they're going to have a runoff in January. And for various reasons that everybody can imagine, $200 or $300 million are going to be spent on that race, is my guess. And instead of having a runoff, what would happen is that the libertarian candidate would be dropped, and looking at who voted for her, their second choice would go to either the Democrat or the Republican, and presumably have put that person, they might have put both, well, it would have put one of them over 50%. So,
right. So, and so you said something that is, I've got a question about. So in an Alta, you wouldn't have a need for a primary election ever?
My understanding of this process is that my understanding was that the primary was to make sure you ended up with few enough candidates for the number of seats that are being contested.
Okay.
Is that true?
Let me clarify that if I can. Anytime that you've got, say, for example, Mayor, if you were up for election and 3 people were to file for the mayor's position, currently under the current elections, there would be a need for Alta to run a primary election.
Right.
Using ranked choice voting, that need would be eliminated, because what the illustration you just gave would come into play. The electorate would go and select in preference who they would like to see elected. And if you or someone were to hit 50%, then there would be no need to count the ballots again. However, if nobody hits the 50%, then whoever was the lowest in terms of vote tally, they would be eliminated, and then their second choice would then be redistributed to whoever the 2 that were left would. Right. And where it's been done in other areas, I mean, like I say, the electorate likes it because they're voting for people and not so much against people, or making a vote. Because, as an example, 4 years ago, I probably threw away my presidential election or ballot because I wasn't comfortable with either one of the candidates, and I voted for a third-party candidate. Using ranked choice voting, I would never be throwing away that ballot, or it would always come back into play if it was necessary. So,
Good. Well, thanks. So I think it would save us the effort of the June primary and the expense that's associated with that, which is not a great expense, but it's just an additional consideration. That's
right.
all I'm getting at.
Yeah, could I add, please, and just a real quick question. I don't want to take us down too much of a tangent, but yeah, I think for Alta, it would be great to avoid the process of a primary if we can. Also, you may be aware, our town council elections are at large. And so every 2 years, 2 town council seats come up at large. And so it's the top 2 vote pollers who would be elected. And just wanted to raise the issue, depending on how a ranked choice interacts with the at-large election format.
Great question, Councilman. In fact, both cities that ran the pilot, the last municipal election, had the same format. Their city council members were at large, and it works basically just in the flip of dropping someone. When somebody hits 50%, then they become the nominee, and then you tally the votes again, and then when the next person hits 50%, then that person is then recognized as the elected representative of the government.
Thanks.
Okay, well, thanks very much for that.
If Mayor, if I could just interject, if you have interest in doing this, one of the things that might be helpful for Utah ranked choice voting and some of the other cities would be an informal letter of interest being sent to the county clerk, and just letting her know, hey, we're interested in this. We encourage you to get the proper preparations done in terms of getting in a position to be able to run ranked choice voting elections.
Okay.
So just to
we'll pick this up, and we may be asking for your participation again in a conversation.
Whatever you need from us, we're happy to help.
Okay.
Thank you again, Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity.
If that's something the council's interested in, then you should put it on the agenda for the next meeting. And then the council could decide if they wanted to authorize the mayor to send such a letter.
I just had one question. What is the potential downside for us in pursuing this? I mean, or even if in adopting ranked choice voting, what could come back and bite us?
Is that's a question for me, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah. The big pushback that we hear from those that are not in favor of ranked choice voting is voter confusion. And frankly, I think that's a red herring. I mean, if you filled out a bubble sheet in terms of ranking, you pretty well know how to rank. And that was shown. In fact, we did a survey of the 2 cities that we did the pilot in, and the electorate overwhelmingly want to see it continued. So it's the education around it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll just add, Margaret, that Kenneth Arrow, the economist, won the Nobel Prize for showing that no voting procedure is perfect. So what we would be doing is improve, this has been proposed as an improvement. It's not a perfect system.
Right. I mean, I think it is an improvement, and I was almost going to recommend that we make a motion to do it today, but that may.
I want to give everybody a chance to look into it a little bit.
Okay.
So, okay. The next item on the agenda was to hear from the team from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology about reopening safely in the time of COVID. For anybody who was not in attendance at the work session, we moved that to the work session, given that, I'll just leave it at that. So that is available on the recording and it will be in the minutes. So just wanted to, any attendees or anybody who's watching who tuned in at 4 o'clock expecting to hear from them now can go back to the beginning of this recorded session. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a discussion and possible action on a change in our land use ordinances. And let me explain why, what I've heard and how we got to where I think we need to be. I got an email from the Alta Ski Lifts company with some concerns, which ended with, if you agree with us, then we're okay with you going ahead. And if you don't agree with us, we would request that you postpone this until we can work out some of these issues, which basically amount to jurisdiction over not the buildings, but the other structures, as Kyle Maynard from Friends of Alta mentioned. Then yesterday, I got a call in the morning from Kyle and Pat Shea, who you also heard from earlier, with a list of concerns, and basically the same statement that if you agree with us, you should implement what we are suggesting. And if you don't agree with us, we request that you hold off. And I said, I got a really full day today, but see what you can come up with in terms of getting people on board with this idea. And in the evening, I heard from Pat Shea again, and that he had spoken with the ski areas council, spoken with a number of our town council members. And then I got what amounted to confirmation of that in a text from Council Member Curry. So I would like to suggest that what we do, and my understanding of what's going to happen if we do postpone this, is that there's going to be a conversation between the Friends of Alta and the Alta Ski Lifts company and our town staff and council. And we will be looking forward to reconciling these concerns in, I hope, a way that meets everybody's main goals. I have a little confidence that that's possible given the conversations I had last night. So my recommendation is that we that we make a motion. I would entertain a motion to postpone item 10 to the December town council meeting, or to some future town council meeting if you prefer it to remain unspecified. But the motion can either be about a specific time and then it automatically gets rolled onto that agenda, or it can be into the future and then we would have to decide to put it on the agenda for a particular meeting.
I move that we postpone it to the December meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, Cliff, do you want to say anything more about any of this, or should we just move on?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I got that call from Pat Shea yesterday afternoon, You know, Pat is always well worth listening to. Raised a couple good points, and just in terms of the substance, let me make just a couple quick comments in terms of the substance of what it's come down to, the building permit exemption. You know, from my point of view, the intention should be not to resolve the jurisdictional issues necessarily, because I'm skeptical that we're going to resolve them, and skeptical that everybody's going to agree on the jurisdictional issues. But I think that there might be a path to where everybody can preserve their positions on the jurisdictional issues, and quite frankly, leave those for another day. You know, one thing also that you know, I have to admit, after all this time, I've been negligent in bringing our focus to this issue, and you know, that's this is an issue that I think I just stumbled on. So I apologize to my colleagues, but it's from my point of view, others may not agree, and that's awesome. But from my point of view, I still do think that there should be an exemption for ski area structures that are not buildings within U.S. Forest Service lands. But I think we need to clarify that exemption doesn't apply outside of Forest Service lands, because the reason for the exemption is that there's a regulatory body that has jurisdiction. That would not be the case on private lands. And so I think the drafting needs to be clarified, that the exemption would only apply on Forest Service lands. The other thing that I think might be might help our process to move forward, you know, this is a question for Polly McLean, whether as we see, some of our council members have more comfort with some of the base area regulations, and less comfort with some of the Upper Albion Basin regulations, and maybe more in line with some of the concerns that the Albion Basin property owners have expressed. And I think from my point of view, council members should have the opportunity to vote on that, vote on the issues that they have concerns on, without having it be an omnibus vote. So I wonder if there's the opportunity to maybe break the enacting ordinance into two. So the council would be voting on the same provisions, but on two separate ordinances, two separate enacting ordinances, so that council members have the opportunity to vote their best judgment on those separate issues. So there, I've said more than enough. I'll turn it over to the rest of you.
Yeah, I think that the my thought actually was that the path of least resistance would be to add clarify the private land issue that you raised. Yeah, exactly. Does anybody else have anything they want to say about this issue, or we will certainly be exploring it as time goes on. Polly, did you have something you wanted to respond to, any part of what Cliff said or any of this?
You know, we can work on how to go about it. It depends on how, you know, the council can vote on each section, I guess. Or we can try to figure out which things maybe might be harder to go one way or another, and we can definitely figure out a way to make that go more streamlined. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a motion before us. Are we ready to vote on this postponement?
I just had one question. It was not part of the motion, whether or not as part of this idea there would be a work session to hold this discussion over in December, whether we would have a work session then to look at what we're then going to be looking at. And so I don't know if I need to put that in as an amendment to the motion or whether that would just be part of the normal processes.
Yeah, I think the motion is to postpone the item on the agenda per se, but I certainly think we'll plan to schedule a work session in December. Thanks, Margaret. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to postpone item number 10, please say aye.
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 I heard all ayes, none opposed. Okay, thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda, and Margaret's gonna get the floor on this, is the discussion and possible action on exploring public safety costs and services.
Thank you. This is something that the council is aware of from the spring, that I had a committee that was investigating, trying to figure out what we could do in terms of finding what our public safety costs were and how we potentially could figure out how to pay for them. And part of that comes even more into play now because of the COVID crisis, that we're facing potential budget issues. We certainly have uncertainty. We know that we had reduced revenue in 2021 as a result of the ski area closing early and the lodges as well. And we have uncertain revenues for 21, 22 likely as well because of the same concerns. But nonetheless, we have municipal services that must be provided. And it's good to hear that there's this third tranche of the CARES funding coming in, which will certainly help. And so part of what I was looking at in the committee that we had was to see what do we do? Where do we go from here? Are there potentially other funding sources that could help fund our police department if they are indeed underfunded, for fire protection, emergency medical services, transportation, whatever other municipal services we provide as well. So one idea was the other funding sources that you were talking about with the CARES Act, and potentially there will be, with a new administration that you mentioned, some additional federal COVID relief coming down the pike at some point. Unclear what, when, or if, and whether it would apply to a municipality. Another potential was municipal bonds as a way of covering any expenses that we had. And then a third one that I came up with, statutorily enabled fees. And this was something that we looked at, and that there is a statutory provision that the state of Utah enacted with enhanced business license fees when disproportionate services are provided and disproportionate costs for those municipal services. So the question became then, well, what do these laws enable us to do? And what would the steps be for us to apply that fee to our current municipal services, whether it's for transportation, water, sewer, police, fire, EMT costs. So one avenue that is possible, and this is being done and implemented in other municipalities, Cottonwood Heights, Park City, and Bryan Head Town, to name just a few, was they developed a study to figure out what disproportionate costs there were in the community, and then figured out what the disproportionate services that were being done, and then by class could establish what the additional expenses were, and then ultimately the community could decide, the council could decide, is there a disproportionate cost? Is there disproportionate service being provided that is directly related to that cost? Then is there a way to allocate that cost in a more equitable way? And that then becomes the political decision. How do you work on that once you've got the study to support it? So we approached Westminster College, and they're very interested in doing a study for us. They would like to have greater community ties with ALTA and provide a service to us. And they can get together a proposal for us with both a cost estimate and a time estimate of how long it would take them to do a study of this nature by late November. And so I would request that the town council place on the December agenda a review of this potential study proposal and consider voting on funding for such a study. And Westminster would evaluate, are there disproportionate services that are being offered to some classes of businesses in town? And if so, what are the disproportionate costs for those disproportionate services? And then once we have that study, as I say, the council would be able to look at that and determine what action, if any, we would need to take. And according to the statute, there would be a process of looking at the study, having it support an ordinance that would allow us to then move forward towards seeking an enhanced business license fee for those disproportionate costs and services.
I'm not sure if I just missed this, but part of the goal of this investigation would be to determine whether indeed there were disproportionate costs, or is that an assumption that there are?
I think that would be part of the determination in the study, that part of the study has to establish what the base level of services are that the municipality provides, and to the extent that there is an enhanced service being provided, what that enhancement is, and is it disproportionately being provided to some businesses. And so that would be part of the study, yes.
John, I think we've had a study done along these lines a little while ago. That's one question I have for you. And another question would be, if we were to go down this path and there were a cost involved. So for example, there's no cost to the services that we're getting, the analyses that MIT is providing to us. Is there, if the cost is, what are the thresholds for where it interacts with our procurement rules?
I actually just looked at it, if that helps you, John, or if you want to. If it's under 2,000, you don't need anything. If it's between 2,000 and 15,000, you need to get 3 quotes. And if it's above 15,000, you need to do a request for proposal.
Okay, so that's good to know about those levels. John, can you tell us something about what we've learned in the past on this issue?
On this, we've not discussed this exact issue previously. We did do a business license study a number of years ago. Geez, it might have been 8 or 9 years ago. Cliff would probably remember more than me. And the people that did that study have since kind of all gone over to Zions Bank. They still do those things. And I think it was like $10,000 at the time for the full-on study for every business license throughout the entire community. And we're kind of poised to start looking at that again. But if we waited to roll this current issue into that, we would be delaying it. But I don't know if we want to put those two things together or look at this enhanced fee separately right now.
I think it might have been only 5 or 6 years since we got it done. I could be wrong, but I know that disproportionate and enhanced services were part of that study.
Where is that study, Piper? Is it posted anywhere?
I will find it and get it out. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I think that we have it on file. I know we have it on file. Yeah.
Okay, I'd be interested in seeing it.
Yeah.
It's dated 2012.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So one possibility that strikes me is we receive quite a bit of in-kind services from various entities, and I think sometimes I suspect, Margaret, you're not gonna agree with this particular statement, but sometimes ambiguity is advantageous, because what happens if this study shows that, for example, snow removal help or search and rescue help outweighs parking lot monitoring and costs, for example? I'm just a little concerned about how this shakes out.
Having read several of these reports, they don't usually, they just look at the business license fee, the services the municipality is giving, and the cost associated with it, and disproportionate, or if there's a request for enhanced services, what that costs. But I think that, Mayor, what you're referring to is just more the political of, if we have a partner in the town that's providing us with a lot of services that's not being compensated for, and their costs go up, they might stop providing those services. And so is that something the town wants to do?
Okay, it's better put than the way I put it. Thanks.
So the question before us, though, is simply, do we want to entertain possibly having this study? Is that correct, Margaret?
Well, I think a preface to that, it would be for me to get information from Westminster about what the cost of such a study would be, what the scope of that study would be. And so we potentially could narrow it to someplace where either there would be no ambiguity, that we would, that there would be no search into an area of potential ambiguity that would be against us, or that, so I think what I'm asking for now is that I be allowed to continue to communicate with Westminster, seek what their study would entail in terms of scope, in terms of how much time it would take to do it, and in terms of cost, and then present that at the December meeting for us to then evaluate as a council whether we go forward or not.
I certainly don't have an objection to hearing more about this. Does anybody have an objection to hearing more about this and seeing where Margaret's investigation goes? And I think as is the usual approach, you can ask me to put something on the agenda, and I'm fine with that. And even if I weren't, if you had another town council member ask with you, it would get on there.
Well, I just did it in this format, thinking that that way we would all anticipate it coming. But if that is unnecessary,
No, it's, we can agree today. I mean, actually, the next item on the agenda is new business anyway, and we'll just say we'll put this on the agenda for December and look forward to hearing more about what you find out from this particular potential provider of this service. Does that work for everybody? Does that work for you, Margaret?
yeah, I just thought since it was on the agenda, we could act on it. It didn't have to be a new business, but either way.
Yeah.
Personally, I'd always welcome more information. It gives us an opportunity to learn, and it might actually increase the ties with our other partners and improve them.
Right. And it's a good idea. This is a first step, and it's a good idea to do this. Westminster is poised and ready to go, it sounds like. And looking at this separately, then I know that we were talking about, and we haven't done anything formally yet for the business licenses as a whole, but not a bad idea to go ahead with this right now since we're ready, since Margaret has done a lot of work and is ready.
I mean, I can present the 2012 study to them, and likely they would like to see that as part of their analysis of what the study would entail and what would be involved in the time and the cost. So that helps probably speed things along as well.
Yeah. Just keep in mind, if memory serves, Piper could probably help with this, but I don't think we enacted all of the recommendations of that 2012 study.
I think, I think we did. I think they not only talked about the business license ordinance, but they more so their study concentrated on the business license fees. And that's why we ended up with 9 different or 10 different fees instead of, I think we used to have just one business license fee. So, and I would ask the council to, as long as they're going to have the study, to frame it around business licenses, because that's where you're going to identify or that's one place to identify the enhanced services or the disproportionate costs.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And it just seems like 8 years is a good time to recalculate what those costs are to the town.
Mike, do you?
I was just going to say it might be helpful, Piper, between now and the next meeting, if you can also track down the minutes where it was discussed in 2012, so you can just make sure that what was implemented or what the thinking was. If sometimes it's a reduced fee, or there's a decision not to implement, even though it might cost the town $400 to do a business license, maybe they charge less for certain reasons.
Actually, now that you mention that, I think that was one part of the presentation. Yeah. Okay.
And I would think that no consulting group expects their client to implement all of their recommendations. That would be unrealistic. Mike, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I guess I just want to voice a minor concern. I think over on the UFA side of things, they're a lot more automated than we are at the marshal's office. I would imagine that a study of this nature is going to involve taking a hard historical look at our calls for service to various business interests. That would be a hand search of records. That would be a fair amount of staff time if we were to take that on. And I don't know if there's an intern that would come along with this that maybe could relieve that pressure on our staff.
Well, yeah, and before, it's several steps to go before we would get to that stage, and I think we would discuss it along the way. But before you start looking for things, some things are easier to see than other things, and so naturally that's what gets looked for. But before we go looking for things, and certainly before we would ask, the marshal's department or any other staff department to undertake a staff time to look for things, I think we better be pretty darn sure that we're looking for the right things and not wasting our time.
Fair comment.
Well, and I would agree. I think that the primary research time would come from the study folks, but it would likely require you or any other town agency to remove any sort of private information so that the researcher intern would not be looking at privileged documents or whatever. So I think they would cull through it and get the information they're wanting, but it may require some sort of filtering initially by the town staff.
Not to get too much in the weeds, but we can probably have the person sign some kind of confidentiality agreement, whatnot, I can work with Marshall Morey on how to do that so they don't spend a lot of time redacting information that would be more intensive than just providing it.
Yeah, I just want to, there are issues of budget and staff time, especially as the ski season ramps up here, that we need to just keep in mind. And I will say, in my experience, if it's students who are doing this, I have never paid students who did an outside consulting work, and I did teach a course called Consulting to Nonprofits for a few years. We did take applications from the nonprofits, and they had to provide resources along the lines of, information and records and things like that, and staff time, but we didn't ever try and charge them for that. So in my experience, students are more motivated by an interesting project that they get a grade for. So I just caution you about, if you approach a dean with the offer of money, you will get charged. And if you approach faculty members with offers of interesting activities, you may not get charged.
Well, I'm in communication with both the dean and the faculty, and it is a faculty member who is doing the research. So are we finished with this topic? I believe I have at least a general assent to approach Westminster further and get in further information. So Cliff had a thumbs up.
And to be discussed at the December council meeting?
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it before us.
Thanks, Margaret.
Good. Okay. That brings us, we are exactly on time at 5:55. Wow.
Weird.
That was pretty amazing. To talk about if there is not other new business, because that was on the agenda. Is there new business that anybody wants to bring up? I'm not hearing any. Okay. Well, we can enjoy the view of each other's rooms, or we can adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
I liked watching you in your van. Those were fun.
It was
seeing you in who was it the other day? They looked like they were in a helicopter, but they turned out to be in a vehicle. But anyway, okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? No. Okay. All right. We are adjourned 4 minutes before 6 o'clock. Thank you, everybody.
See you later.
Thank you.